Well, no, I skipped number 9.
Number 13 is Bill.
So 13 is Bill because I had this down. I totally did not put number 9. So I'm 13, and then we could do some. Then at the end of 13, right next to final takeaways, I'd make a mark to put down all because we all have to talk about the final takeaways on leadership.
I really don't think that works, but here's what I tell you did work. When I was doing multiple choice tests and I didn't know the answer, no, I would go, I haven't used A in a while. I should probably throw A in.
Yeah.
I've done that too.
See, I always heard on SATs, C was supposed to be the most commonly answered number. So whenever I was unsure, I went C.
Well, and that's
Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, our favorite pizza shop to go to in the state of Wisconsin. Today's episode is about leadership, what it takes to lead on the football field, in the military, in business, and in life. Elite athletes succeed because of more than just talent. They develop mindset, habits, and disciplines that translate into every area of life. Whether in business, leadership, or family, the same traits that create champions on the field create winners off the field. We're going to go through a list of what a leader is, what leadership is. Number 1, personal responsibility and ownership. Extreme ownership, accountability, reliability, integrity, and humility. To me, that's whether it's on the football field, in business, or in family, it's looking at the person to your left and right and saying, you're going to do your job. Right? You're going to do what you have to do. You're going to be honest. You're going to stand up. You're going to fight as hard as you can.
I think the accountability goes back to football. I know that, especially in offensive line, when we were playing, you had to be accountable for the guy you were going to block. I had to trust you had to trust all of us across the front line, because if you miss your block, it screws in my block, vice versa. So you had to have that trust, in each other, and the accountability that I'm going to get my freaking guy. Yeah, and so I think accountability is probably like one of the biggest ones, followed by extreme ownership. Yes, extreme ownership is I think is super important. And then you have it's just because when things aren't going great, you can't point the finger at somebody else. You can't say, "Oh, it's your fault because you did this." It makes you look like a jackass. Like it really does amongst all your peers. Like, "Oh, it's your fault, Kevin, because you were late." Not my fault because I shit the bed and did something stupid. So I said, all of those are super, in my opinion, are super important, including the humility. We've all done some great things in this life, but being humble is one of those things, because that's all in the past. Like, we have to move forward every freaking day and improve ourselves, and continue to strive and grow as human beings.
Well, and I think it goes back to what we were taught as an early age. It goes back to team, whether it's team on the sports field, team in business, team in family, team any which way. A team has friendships. Right. You got to do what you're going to say you're going to do. You have to do it, and you have to have that person. You have to be loyal to the person on your left and right, and have them trust that they're going to believe in you, that you're going to stand up and do it.
I think one of the leaders, I'll mention it probably a bunch of times, was Coach Steffenhagen. I can instantly close my eyes and remember him shouting out, "Be a team guy, not a me guy."
Yep.
And, to follow that up is no excuses. I think the me guy finds a reason and excuse to blame everybody but himself. Mm-hmm. Not being accountable, not showing up, finding excuses not to go to the weight room. And the other thing I think is, the true accountability is doing the work when nobody's looking or watching, and studying, I think most importantly, when nobody's watching also.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge point. It's easy to take time off when no one's watching. It's easy to find a reason not to go to the gym. It's easy to find a reason to watch another episode of TV instead of doing what needs to be done. It's holding and I think personal accountability is a big thing. And it's harder. Like, for example, it's easier to work out with somebody at a gym because you're going to let that person down than it is for you to to go by yourself. You can find every freaking reason in the book to talk yourself out of going to the gym. You can drive to the parking lot and change your mind. And I mean, the hard part is over. You're already there, but you can still find a way. So having enough respect and love for yourself and being able to hold yourself accountable, I think is super important.
So I think, on the bottom, humility, telling your teammates that, you messed up,
Right.
and that you're going to take full responsibility and you're going to work harder. You're not going to let them down.
Right.
I think that's where linemen really, when I think about it as in sports, is my linemen have been my brothers all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can call them almost immediately and they're going to answer. Joe, I can tell you pick me up from the airport when I've been stranded, trying to find a way home. But there's nobody else I'd rather call, and it's the lineman brothers.
Yeah.
And I think to piggyback off that, I would be pissed off if you didn't call me. Like, that's the kind of loyalty that I have to my friends and to my family. I would be fucking pissed off if you didn't call me because, and if I could find a way to help you, it would piss me off. So I expect it.
And I think that's the integrity, right? That's who you are. That's who you've developed. And being a leader is knowing when you say that you're going to do something, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard lesson that I think these athletes nowadays, there's so many AAUs and special travel tournaments. And at the end of the day, you have to know, you have to review yourself. You have to be accountable, and you have to say, hey, I need to get better. I need to do this in the weight room. I need to eat right. I need to get my sleep. All those little things that make you be great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple things. One, too, I think everybody gets told they're the best, and there's nobody better than them. Number two, Joe has done a great job of being accountable and picking me up from some pretty obscure places over the years. But number three, going back to where it all started with all of us, with teams, I think we had the luxury of playing on teams with some very loyal players that whether it was Joe and I at Wisconsin, where maybe the O-line wasn't blocking that well, and Ron Dane's like, no, it was my fault. Wasn't hitting the holes.
Mm-hmm.
Or quarterback wasn't doing too good. No, it was my fault. Gave up a pressure. Like everybody else taking responsibility and not pointing that finger. And I think that number one is huge when it comes to leadership.
I think the next, so number two is going to be discipline and a work ethic. And under that falls consistency, attention to detail, mental toughness, time management, and self-control. So even to piggyback off that, I was never really a fan of Tom Brady, ever. I just never was. And I watched his documentary on TV, I think, or it was on like Facebook or something. I learned to actually respect what he did, because it's the guy who consistently shows up and does it all of the time. That's where the greatness is. That's where it comes from. It's not just you can have exceptional talent and not produce and not perform and not elevate your life to the success that you believe that you should have. And it's the guys that are undersized, underweight, not tall enough, not strong enough, that just don't have that quit and consistently show up when no one's looking and putting in the extra hours and the extra work to make themselves better. And I think we all know people that have done that or do that. You're going, Bill, you were undersized.
Yeah.
Let's face it. You're sitting on tape, but you were undersized. You were too short. And
too
weak. We've all heard that before, and you elevated your game all the way up to the NFL. I said, so, you are one of those guys that, the consistency in showing up and doing the hard things, you're a perfect example of that.
Well, and even my thing with consistency, I try and tell youth athletes all the time, we ran a lot of good plays at Wisconsin, but our bread and butter was the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we ran powers, counters,
right,
different plays, but zone was our play.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we got to our junior year, if not our senior year, we had probably practiced the zone to the left, the zone to the right, 23 zone, 24 zone, 25 and 20, 26, whatever the numbers were, probably well over 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still going to practice it again and again and again. Like one guy takes a step 1 inch further, 1 inch shorter, it changes something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's practice like my belief was, if you want to be perfect, you have to practice. Practice makes perfection.
Mhm.
It's striving for that goal. Like I got a quote later from Jim Huber about perfection and what you want to strive for every day. And that was our attitude, is we just came to the realization, yeah, I know the play like the back of my hand, but we're going to run it over and over and over every single day. So it is absolutely as close to perfection come game time as it could be.
You know, I look at the mental, physical, emotionally tough. We had shirts, MPE toughness.
Okay.
And it was mentally tough, physically tough, and emotional. So mentally is knowing your assignment, knowing the snap count, knowing your role. Physically was be the most dominant you can within the rules, right? From until the whistle, right? And then I think the biggest part was the emotional toughness. We always know you face that person that's trash talking, that hits you after the whistle, right? But you got to be emotionally tough to be able to, hey, you got me there, you think, but I'm going to get you as soon as the next play.
Yeah.
And over, I'm going to hound you. And I think today's athletes, a lot of them, somebody chips them, somebody says something, gets in their head, and they're not emotionally tough.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it in the NFL with special teams. I'm not sure I can remember ever, and I played 4 years of special teams also at Bowling Green. Not sure I ever had a holding penalty, because it was ingrained. If you can't get your hands on their chest and their sternum, you don't hit them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yet, over and over, these NFL players can't do it.
Right.
And it's just because they're not emotionally tough. They're not mentally tough.
Yeah. And when you do get your hands on them, keep your feet moving.
Yeah.
Don't just stop. Like just simple rules that go back to when we were kids. Keep your feet moving.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just grab somebody and stand there. But yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Going back to even the attention to detail, and this is Coach Hughes was the most detail-oriented coach I've ever had. I mean, I'm talking, you can blow your guy off the ball, dump him 8 yards off the ball. They score over the hole you made, and what is he reading you about in film? Your first step.
Yeah.
Your first step was 2 inches off. Who taught you that here? We don't do that
It was
here.
2 inches,
And
not
you're going,
6 inches.
I mean, you're going, dude, I just fucking dumped this dude, put him on his ass, physically mauled him, and I'm getting raked over the coals for 10 minutes and embarrassed in front of my friends because my first step was 2 inches and not 6,
But it set a standard, though, for us, too.
And I think self-control is a big one. Mastering the emotions, to piggyback off you, and that can go anywhere. I mean, in the coffee shop, I have a lot of female employees. Emotions run high there. I have to, when things aren't going well, I still have to walk in there every day and be the consistent guy and not show. I could be they have no idea what's going on in my personal life. They have no clue because I show up every day just like this. Okay. I can tell you that if I walk into that door and I'm looking pissed off, or I brought my emotional baggage with me to work, it will affect the entire freaking shift. It affects customer service, sales that day, just because I walked in like a jackass. So like even having to put that aside, sometimes it's not easy, but just being able to do that.
Well, and like we say, it doesn't matter the playing surface, whether it's, and I keep going back to the correlation, whether it's the football field, you come on the football field with an attitude, you're going to change. Like if I come out with a bad attitude, the whole offense is going to change their style of play. You say in the coffee shop, it could be you and your business. It could be us in our family or with our kids. Right. You have that bad attitude. It's going to change the aura of the room, and everyone's going to adopt that attitude. So yes, agree.
And mastering your emotions. I mean, how many times, if you're a big guy, little guys come up and they just want to test it, right?
Yeah.
And you really have to have self-constraint, right? And that's all walks of life. I always think about, when they're talking about jiu-jitsu and UFC, they asked one of the champion all-time greats, what do you do when there's a fight? And he goes, well, first I would run away. And it was mind-blowing to him, because you only train jiu-jitsu if you have to protect your life, right? You're not going out and looking for fights and telling people I'm the greatest and, I'm going to, armbar you. They just don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? They're trained to protect themselves and then distance themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that.
Right. Very true.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
The next one is communications and influence. As a leader, you have to have clear communication. You have to active listen, lead by example, inspire and motivate, and through that you're going to build trust. I think communication has been one of the instrumental things of coaching, business. You have to understand and develop a clear language. I think about it, especially watching hockey. Hockey is, if you ever watch hockey, and I was a football guy and basketball and baseball guy growing up, but hockey is one of those rare, when you only get an hour of ice time, you'd be amazed how they can break it down into 4 quadrants, have 4 separate drills, and they, time is a commodity, so they get the full practice in. And with communication, you have to develop that language. So in sports, first thing is the first lesson is explaining the language, right? So everybody understands. And then that's the beauty of setting that simple dynamic of communication. And it's snap count football. It's communication. It's amazing how many R words are to the right. L is maybe blue to the left. Right. Simple stuff that you can put in day one. I mean, defense, let's face it, you can put your defense in 3 days. Offense is a little bit different, right? But communication is setting that language is so important.
Yeah, communication in general. I mean, I don't care if it's your marriage or whatever, and I'll be the first to admit you, and my wife will agree, I suck at communicating. I internalize everything, and I suck at communicating. That is one of my biggest downfalls. It's just one of my defects. I don't ever speak I don't ever portray my thoughts I don't want to say in an appropriate way. It doesn't come out the way that it's supposed to.
You're not vulnerable with your emotions.
Maybe.
That's what you were looking for.
I don't think that's it, but that's not anything to do with communication at all. That's the exact opposite of communication.
But I don't think you're from Venus. The men are from Mars
Correct.
and the women are from Venus.
Correct.
It is so emotional. Joe, how does drinking that Diet Mountain Dew really make you feel?
The one that jumps out at me is the lead by example. And I think we've all experienced it, especially when you go back to the high school level. You always have those vocal players, right. I'll put it politely, that want to chirp, bark, say everything that they think is right. Where I go, I want to see somebody do it.
Right.
Show me the right way to do it. And then when I want to be a leader, I want to say, do as I do, not as I say. Watch me. Watch how much time. Watch what time I get in the weight room. Watch what time I leave the weight room. Watch what I do when I'm in the weight room. Watch what I do on the field.
Right.
Watch all those details. And that's how I want to lead. And that's how me personally, prefer to be led, as opposed to somebody bouncing around, just shouting off, come on, the fired up, hoorah-rah type of guy. No, lead by example. Right. Set the example of what you want your teammates to look like and play that way. Whether it's, and now we can go back and forth too, whether it's on the football field, whether it's in a marriage with the communication, here's how I'm going to communicate, and I'd like you to communicate the same with me. Whether it's in business, this is how I want my team to act towards this sales goal. We're not just going to talk about it. I got a buddy of mine that says there's a difference between talkers and doers. It's go out there and do it and show the way that it's done, as opposed to talking that this is how we're going to get it done.
I always hated the guy that was a cheerleader too. He was always the guy that was third string and wasn't out there getting his ass kicked all practice, and wasn't the guy who's, in the trenches just getting throttled, and just, sucking the wind because you're dying. It's always a guy that's, third string special teams.
Fresh. They got all springs in their legs and
not
feeling
a
good.
stain on their uniform. The last time they sweated was during warm-ups. And you're going, come on, just, dude, I appreciate the encouragement, but I'm in my head right now. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get through this fucking game. I'm trying to figure out my blocking assignments. I'm wondering out how I can get a lead on this guy who's been standing me up in the freaking hole.
Yeah.
And, so that's where my mind is going. Like, it's not always ever, like, the cheerleader bothers me.
Absolutely.
It always has.
But, with clear communication, I think, the background is obviously comes from a lot of great teachers. Coach Wooden, one of his first practices, he took time to teach the players how to put on a socks right, and tie their shoes. And these All-Americans back in the day are like, Coach Wooden, what are you doing? And he said, well, first off, if you don't put your socks on right, you're going to get blisters, and then you're not going to be able to play.
Yeah.
So, that teaching background of speaking with clarity, purpose, and explaining what, what we're going to do as an organization. Here's where we're right now, and this is where we want to be. Mm-hmm. And I think when you look back at great teachers that have been great coaches, Phil Jackson, right, basketball coach, Coach Wooden, who I talked about, Vince Lombardi, Pat Riley, Andy Reid's got a great philosophy. The New York Times before the Super Bowl was talking, and he goes back to when he was coaching Masters back in college, and his concept is mastery teaching method. And you have to be able to break stuff down to the simplest, and you have to be able to teach it. You have to be attention to detail. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that's lost in today. If you can't teach it, you can't coach it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
Very true.
Agreed. Next up, we have decision-making under pressure. Composure, problem-solving, adaptability, risk assessment, and decisiveness. The one that steps out at me is composure. I mean, all of us, especially on the sports field and in the business world, we've been in not high risk, but very emotional moments, high pressure moments per se, whether it's bowl games, whether it's big deals in business. And I think it's being able to keep your composure, which a lot of that to me, it goes back to one of the earlier deals where we were talking about consistency, putting in the work. I think the more you practice something, whether it's in business or it's on the football field or it's in school or whatever it is, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you're going to be, the better results you're going to get in that situation.
Right. I think this hits up really close to law enforcement, all of this decision-making under pressure. In law enforcement, you have to make a freaking decision in a microsecond. And that decision is going to impact your life or somebody else's life far in that instance of a second. You have to make that decision. And there's been some pretty hairy calls that I've been associated with, and at that point in time, there's no time to second guess yourself because you don't have the luxury of time. And you hear about all these law enforcement shootings, et cetera, right? And then they go to court. And the judge has freaking 3 or 4 months to deliberate over that microsecond that you had to make a decision in, that's going to impact your life, your career, your family, and all that other stuff. Along the same lines is the problem-solving skills is also sometimes you have to, I think General Patton has a saying that says, a good plan violently executed right now is better than a perfect plan in a week. Okay. And I believe that, time is not always a luxury we have, whether it's in business, whether it's in your family or whether it's in, your personal life. Sometimes you don't have the freaking time to sit there and analyze it and go through if I do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. Sometimes you just got to go with it and make your best educated guess and then be able to do that with confidence too. And not be like, oh shit, and then you have to roll with what you've done and be able to gather the information as it unravels ahead of you to be able to make your next decision. But I said, this is right out of law enforcement. It's microsecond decision. That's where this influenced my life. Now, obviously, in the business world and in my family, it's a little bit different, but still, I still have that kind of sense of urgency. Like, I hate it when people don't have an idea of what they want to do, like going out to dinner. Like going to a restaurant that we've been to a million times and you have to sit there and go, we've been waiting in line for 5 minutes and the menu hasn't changed in 20 freaking years. Like I can spitball whatever. But it's the people that sit there for like 5 minutes and I'm like, it just drives me crazy. I just don't have the patience for that. It drives me nuts. Also, grocery stores, which I talked about before, pisses me off. Okay, pick a freaking half and half and grab one. Okay, you don't have to read every freaking label. It drives me crazy. Make a decision. Like,
Do you think you get a case of the hangry? Like you get a little bit of hungry and you get a little angry because you don't get the food?
I don't think it's hangry because I'm kind of wired hot the way it is. I kind of run hot. Like,
Yeah, Kevin, I've been in the grocery store with him. He even yells at me if I'm not on the right side of the correct side of the aisle with the cart.
it drives me crazy.
I've gotten yelled at.
It drives me crazy.
So.
And this is the guy, too, that will leave his freaking cart in the middle of the damn aisle. It just pisses me off.
Sometimes you got to go look for stuff.
It doesn't matter. Move your damn cart over to the freaking side. Like, it's...
At Walmart.
Oh, my God.
That's a zoo.
Sometimes you're just in the zone and you gotta do what
There's no zone. This is the problem. You're not aware. You have no spatial awareness. Maybe that should be on leadership, having some spatial awareness. I don't see that as a bullet point down here, Bill.
Problem solving is one of those, knowing when to make an audible, reading cues. Right? I take it to the poker. You have to find people's tells, right?
Yep.
I think that's important. And I think one of the best sales books that I've ever read was you can tell a lot by a person by just the initial handshake, right? And, it's taught in communication. If you keep it neutral, north and south, right, and you keep it firm, that's how good handshakes be. But if somebody, Joe, if I give you a handshake and I turn you, what's your initial thought right now?
Now it's pissing me off.
Why?
Because you're trying to show domination over me.
Yep. So if I go...
So I'm going to crank it back and I'm going to hold it there and I'm going to crush your hand longer and hold it longer just to make it uncomfortable so you know that I'm in charge.
See? So then now I give you a handshake like this. What is that? Weakness, right?
Yep.
Now, the only caveat to that is if somebody's an ex-football player or they have arthritis,
Right.
I mean, you think you're getting all excited, you're going to meet, Dick Butkus or somebody, old, and you just crush their hands. I mean, they probably have arthritis, right?
Yeah.
And
I crush your hand regardless.
yeah, and the other thing is part of the book is when you walk into somebody's office and you see vibrant colors and paintings, right? What's your initial thought?
This person's a happy, cheery person.
Yep. Now you walk into somebody's office and they have pictures of themselves with Coach Riley, Andy Reid, the president. Arrogant, but what else?
All about self-image.
Right. They want to know immediately how they can be connected with you and if you're going to help them in their path.
Correct.
Right. Now, the other one is you walk in and it's just blank walls and maybe a picture of their family. What's that tell you?
This person's all about work.
Work? And what else? You got to prove they're analytical. They're probably a book. That's all they want to do is facts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the law. And the other one is sometimes in organizations, everyone has this a gatekeeper / protector. It's their job to protect the organization, right? And if you don't follow the rules, that's their job, right? So part of that is asking questions and getting to know them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's about active listening, digging deeper, asking questions on what they do and how they got started and do they like their job, do they like their career, what's the future look like, where do you want to go, right? Finding the problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes to great coaches know how to make audibles. By reading these cues, they know right when to make an audible, to switch the offense, switch the defense, send a blitz, right? So,
True.
Agree.
And on the same token, I have a hard time with that because even watching high school football, we'll go through a whole freaking quarter of doing the exact same thing and it's not working. And then why do you have to wait to halftime to go inside and make an adjustment?
Yep.
It drives me. Now, at Wisconsin, that wasn't the case. Huber was listening and he's like, okay, this is what they're doing. Boom, boom, boom. Here, this is the new thing. We're not doing this. We practice all week and this is the new step and execute. It was that simple. But I watch these high school sports now and I'm like, you're running the same damn play over and over again. It's getting blown up at the line of scrimmage because of, they're either doing a delayed blitz of some sort. But there's we never adapt on the fly.
I think it's a lack of confidence where they want to hear through other people agree that their decision's correct. Then they're going to say, okay, let's change it up.
Bill, I think one of the great stories of, when you were learning as a player at Wisconsin, what did you do? How did you study and how did you prepare yourself?
So for starters, when I learned 3 ways. I learned by watching somebody else do it on tape, by seeing it on the board, and also by doing it myself. And the studying factor just came in every which way. It was studying the pictures, looking at the different defenses. How do we block this defense? How do we block that defense? And then just watching as much tape as humanly possible.
Yep.
I mean, we got to the point where by my junior, senior year, we were spending half the day in the stadium. We'd grab our food early in the morning, go to the stadium, and just watch film all day long, trying to pick up cues on the other team, trying to pick up like back then, computers weren't like nowadays. Even at the high school level, they could break down, third and long blitzes, and boom, you get them all in front of you. Where, I mean, the three of us at this table know we're just watching the game tape. Maybe there might be like a blitz package tape where you can watch blitzes where maybe a GA did the blitz cut up. But it's just watching tape, like literally taking notes. I mean, we'd have notebooks. And that's what I think people don't get when you go back to football. We would literally be sitting in the conference room, table bigger than this, watching the film on a big screen, literally jotting down notes. Like this quarter of the game, here's the defense, here's the down and distance, this is what number 91 did. Now let's see if he does it again. If he does do it again, is it a tendency? Is he going to do it more than once, more than twice? If he doesn't do it again, was it just a one-off that you can't really validate that much? But yeah, it's putting time. It's studying game tape, just like it is studying for school, just like it is studying in sales or business, studying your products, studying your competitors. You're trying to get as much knowledge as humanly possible.
And I think one of the great stories is Johnny Manziel in college. The offensive coordinator wanted to try controlling him the first game, and first game of Johnny Manziel's career wasn't very good, right? But then he realized, like, this guy's full of emotion. This guy has the it factor. He just let him do his thing, and boy, by making that audible, he enjoyed the ride. The university made a lot of money after him, right? But then it also led to NFL. He got his Chrome playbook, and not once did he even open it up.
Yeah.
He even lied about it,
Yeah.
And the agent's like, he didn't open it once? Nope.
Right.
And athleticism will only take you so far.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then you look at somebody like Luke Kuechly or
Yes.
Peyton Manning. And, I mean, Luke Kuechly, he retired early, but the impact he made, the way he studied and prepared, he's calling out where the offense is going, where the ball is going before it's even snapped, because he knew the offense better than the offense that he was playing against. It's unfreaking believable. And the guy was just a star.
Or even looking at the Peyton Manning, Ray Lewis situation where they're playing each other twice a year, and those two just constantly trying to get one little advantage on the other. And I'm trying to think, who was the big time DB for Baltimore? Did you ever see that?
Ed Reed.
Ed Reed. Did you ever see that play with Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
He watched Peyton so much. He's like, when this happens and this happens, he always goes here. So he's like, when I opened up, instead of opening up that way, I opened up the other way to make him believe I was doing a deep drop. And he curled back around and got the interception.
Right.
And Manning was furious. He's like, he got me. Like, he picked up a tendency. He saw it and he took advantage of it. And he knew exactly what he was doing. He's like, I've watched enough tape. I know if I do this, he's going to throw it to this guy.
Right.
And if I do this and I curl around fast enough, I'll be right there for the pick. And it's just, there's so much intelligence that goes along with that. But at the same time, too, like we've said on the show, that stuff that we learned in football, like those traits are what's making you good in the coffee shop, Kevin good in business. When I was in sales, me good in sales, taking all those traits that we learned on the football field and carrying them over into the real world. Because the traits are still the same. Yeah, we're not hitting somebody, but the studying is the same. The learning your opponent's the same. The, correcting your mistakes are the same. And all of that, no matter who you are, if you're a middle school kid listening to the show, what you're learning in sports right now is going to benefit you later on in life. If you listen and you do what you're told at that age, there's going to be a benefit later on in life.
So I actually incorporated that into, again, I didn't own a coffee shop. I never owned a business, and I never was a barista. Like, that was not in my realm of what I thought I was going to be when I grew up. And so I went to barista school. I think it was for their 10 or 12 weeks in Iowa. I was behind enemy lines for 10 or 12 weeks. Anyway, they gave me some information, and it was like a playbook. I handled it like a playbook. I went through and started memorizing and reading the book and memorizing stuff. And even if I didn't know what I was talking about, I still had to memorize. I would memorize everything down the line. So when I showed up there, because I knew that I was going to be a hard teach on this, because again, this is so foreign to me.
It's not your norm.
And so I needed to make sure that I wasn't the weak link, and and I sure as hell didn't want to show up there unprepared. So I studied my ass off. I started memorizing recipes, memorizing all this stuff. And then when I showed up there, they couldn't believe what I knew just from reading and from studying this whole book that they gave me. And they said, we've never had anybody prepared like this before, ever. Like, we can't even believe. And I said, yeah, I memorized this stuff because it became second nature. This is something I needed to learn, just like a playbook in college.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to do. So was it enjoyable reading about freaking latte milk and shit? No, but I still needed to know what I was doing, because I was not going to show up there unprepared. And,
but once again, how things carry over into life. Like,
Right.
Very similar to your point with me, with going to multiple teams post-college. We always say learning a new offense is like learning a new language. You have to do what you have to do. You have to freaking learn it. When I went into sales, where I did the majority of my career was in medical sales, I had to learn biology. And is that right? Yeah.
Chemistry?
No, biology.
You
That's
learn
about
biology?
the body.
Yeah.
Isn't biology
Oh, I
about
suppose for
the body? Yeah. And I had to learn how the surgeries took place. I had to learn all of that from A to Z. And then once I did learn it, then I went back and said, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this breaks? What if that breaks? And you had to learn it all. But we were used to it because we've done it how many times in our life prior. And we know if we want to be great, you got to learn it like the back of your hand.
I kind of think that's why, businesses, some of those cutthroat businesses, they're looking for former law enforcement, former military, and athletes, because they've been through that. They know the rigmarole, they know the pressure, they know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, it becomes second nature to them. So
Absolutely. I think one of the great, you should post a link with Peyton Manning when he was creating audibles. I still remember it when we were talking at the very beginning. Pittsburgh. Well, what does that mean? Post in, right?
Okay.
So it was just a communication that he created with his receivers and team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought of high school, curl snake. Everybody knew it was a curl. Outside guy was doing a curl, and inside guy was doing a snake. Power. You see a lot of guys in 2 minutes. They just raise their right hand. It's power right, power left.
Mm-hmm.
But by creating a simple language like that, simple communication, most of your successful football teams and basketball teams, it's just a simple language.
Yeah.
Simple offense that's just allows everybody to be successful.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.